So last August at this time, our 2019 assessed valuation was $108,416,312. So that is a decrease of $1,027,304. We've seen the primary decrease in personal property. As vehicles get older, they become worth less money. Truly, our biggest hit came from the machinery inside Copeland is getting older, so it's worth less money. That's happened to us 2 years in a row. It is my understanding that hopefully there may be some new machinery coming into Copeland. So we are at the lowest possible levy, so at $2.75 is the minimum levy, and that will generate $2,953,197.72. We will see $21,919 new revenue from new construction or improvements. Usually in a district that has a levy higher than $2.75, you can't take more of an increase than the CPI. So sometimes you have to roll back your levy. But since we are at $2.75, we can take, if we saw an increase, we can take that full increase. So not last year, the year before, we saw an increase. It was actually 7.7%, and we could take that full increase. But since we're at $2.75, it kind of is what it is.
$10
So,
for charity.
so we have to take, if we have any comments or anybody would like to ask any questions, and then the board would need to make a motion to set our levy at $2.75.
Does anybody out there have any comments? Questions? We need a motion to approve the 275 tax levy for the upcoming year. Dan makes a motion. Do I have a second? Troy seconds. Any discussion? Do we have to have a roll call vote?
Yes. Yes.
Roll call vote, all those for. Dan?
Yes.
Dina?
Yes.
Troy?
Yes.
Randy?
Yes.
Bart?
Yes.
Lowell vote is yes too. Motion passed.
Just wait till you can adjourn the tax rate hearing and wait till 6:30.
Need to, motion to adjourn the tax rate hearing. Do we have a motion? Randy makes a motion. Do we have a second? Dan seconds. Any discussion? All those in favor? Motion passed, 6-0.
Well, at my tax classes and stuff, because you're out.
Conversion things from the tax.
Mark?
I'm so happy for you. Got him to get that bid.
Mark on the
I can't imagine all the stuff you guys have to do to. I admire you.
629.
Volunteering.
So it's just 629.
I didn't know what I was doing myself into. That was
I
no.
guess I got a good phone.
Yeah, and it sounds like you're very techy, but do you think I can do it?
I call this meeting to order. This is our regular meeting, August the 20th. First thing we need to do is pledge of allegiance. Randy, will you lead us, please?
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
About the consent agenda. Yeah. First item on the agenda is our consent agenda. It's for the approval of the minutes for July 16th and August the 6th, regular minutes. Approval of financial summary fund balances, authorizations for payment of bills, approval of proposed agenda, approval of substitute teachers and bus drivers.
Bills are obviously a little bit higher this month because we made a $330,000 lease purchase payment, right in that number. And then obviously our back to school supplies to get ready for school, so they are higher this month. We do have an addition to, that was put on late for 2 substitute bus drivers. So if you didn't look at it today, you didn't see it, but it's Teresa Anderson and Kelly Green. I'm just pending. We have everything for Kelly, and Teresa is just pending the background check and the drug screen she'd have to pass before she'd be able to drive.
We need a motion to approve the consent agenda. Troy makes the motion. Do we have a second? Everybody wants to second?
I'll second.
Mark second.
Mark seconds. Any discussion? All those in favor? Four. All those opposed? Did you vote, Brandy?
I sustain. I have a payment to my business in here.
Yes.
I have a relative in here too.
Okay.
So we need to.
4, 2 abstaining.
Yeah. Okay.
Motion
Thank
passed.
you. People want the money.
No,
We can pay
what's
bills
going on?
tomorrow.
We could always pull them out, but I thought it was easier to do
Yeah,
that.
it is. Thank you. Thank you.
Next item is to recognize our visitors, and we thank you for coming tonight. Almost full house. We got 2 empty chairs. That's not bad.
Nope, not yet. We haven't got there yet. You're next.
Next item on our agenda is the MSBA monthly board report. I'm assuming this is about the MSBA fall conference.
Hello, everyone, and welcome to the Missouri School Boards Association's board report for the month of August. We thank you for the opportunity to share some news and information during a few minutes of your board meeting. We begin with a look at how Missouri's public schools are meeting the challenge of continuing to educate our students during the coronavirus pandemic. School boards and administrators throughout Missouri have spent the spring and summer developing plans and now are implementing those plans to start the new school year, which begins this month for most school districts. The decision to open school buildings and how to open school buildings is best made at the local level, so those plans vary significantly depending on location and local circumstances. Some districts are offering full-time in-person instruction, some a combination of in-person and virtual learning, and some are going completely virtual. Keeping students, teachers, and staff safe and healthy remains a priority for school boards and administrators while still providing students with a quality education. There are a couple of new federal laws on emergency leaves that apply to school district employees during this pandemic. One is the Emergency Paid Sick Leave Act. MSBA Associate Executive Director Kelly Hopkins says that law provides for 2 weeks of leave at full pay under certain circumstances.
It can be taken for 6 different reasons, all related to COVID, such as isolation requirements, quarantine, illness, caring for someone who's ill, those sorts of things. There's 6 different reasons why you could take that leave, and it is at full pay.
The other new federal law is the Emergency Family and Medical Leave Expansion Act. It allows eligible employees to have up to 12 weeks of leave to care for a child because a school or daycare facility has been closed or if the care provider is unavailable due to a public health emergency. Contact the MSBA Legal Department for more details on those two new federal laws. While many Missouri students will be returning to classrooms this month, others will be learning virtually, either part-time or full-time. Hopkins says there's likely to be a difference between the virtual learning that took place last spring and the virtual learning taking place during the new school year.
The biggest difference between virtual education in March and April and virtual education this coming school year is that March and April were a little loosey. We just wanted to keep students engaged. Virtual education beginning this year is going to be real education, 4 to 6 hours a day, with students in classes and doing work and meeting the requirements of the district in terms of how they perform.
MSBA continues to update our pandemic recovery considerations document. The latest update features recommendations for teachers developed by Missouri Teachers of the Year. Topics include the cycle of assessment and instruction during school reopening, classroom design during the pandemic, and COVID considerations regarding substitute teacher plans and preparations. The Pandemic Recovery Considerations document is posted on the MSBA website, along with numerous other resources related to the reopening of schools. In response to the ever-changing environment and the challenges you are facing as Missouri school leaders, the MSBA Board of Directors has voted unanimously to take the 2020 MSBA Annual Conference in cooperation with the Missouri Association of School Administrators and Missouri PTA completely virtual. The virtual conference will include traditional pre-conference sessions, general sessions, and other conference events, as well as several sessions related to issues surrounding the coronavirus pandemic. Approximately 30 sessions will be presented during the virtual annual conference on September 25th through 26th. Additionally, a series of online sessions will be offered weekly to registered conference participants beginning October 6th. Registration will remain the same, and members will have access to all content until June 30th of 2021. Check the MSBA website for registration information and a schedule of conference sessions. Also, be sure your school board is represented at the MSBA Fall Delegate Assembly to be held virtually on Friday, September 25th during the annual conference. This delegate assembly will be considering approval of MSBA's advocacy positions document that will form the basis of MSBA's lobbying efforts during the 2021 session of the Missouri General Assembly. Delegates do not have to be registered for the annual conference in order to participate in the delegate assembly, and if your board's designated delegate cannot participate, you can designate another board member to represent your board at this important meeting. That's it for this month's edition of the MSBA Board Report. Thanks for allowing us to have some time at your board meeting, and so long.
Just a reminder, obviously you talked about it going virtual. If you would like to attend that virtual conference, everybody is registered. If you are not going to attend, please let us know so we can renew your registration. Recover some of those funds. Do something basic. So BJ just needs to know pretty quick. This month. Yeah, by September 1st.
Next item is public comments. Do we have anybody that would like to make a comment?
I do. Good evening, my name is Daniel Boyd. Thank you for allowing me to speak tonight. I'm only one of many concerned parents in the district, and as such, I realize how hard it is to make decisions. I fully understand the difficulties you all have in forming a reentry plan regarding this pandemic. I respect the fact that no matter what plan you decide on, there is no way to please every person. With that being said, first, I want all of our kids, family, and faculty to be safe and healthy. I also want them in school. I believe that we can all agree that this is good for all of us. I believe in our Constitution, the very reason so many men and women have given their lives to protect our freedom. I do not believe in running scared. Right now, so many are running scared of this virus. It is fact the virus is contagious and in some cases deadly. However, the media has blown this out of proportion. ashamed. The common cold and flu can be deadly to those with certain health conditions too. I do believe common sense should be applied by each of us. I do not believe in mandated masking or social distancing. I do not agree with taking away our right to make informed decisions about what's best for us. If you want to wear a mask or feel that you need to wear a mask, that is your right. If you want to stay home, stay home. If you do not want to be around people, don't be. I am more concerned with the long-term effects that wearing the masks for extended periods of time will have on our kids. The additional health concerns related to these things are substantial. Administration, I have been in contact with the health department since early July. I will not single out by name anyone from the Douglas County Health Department that I have spoken to in this meeting. However, I do have names and dates, just as I have names and dates of the emails and voicemail you all have sent out from administration. I posed many questions to the health department, most of which I was given the answer, I do not know, or I can research that and get back with you. To date, they have yet to get back with me. I suspect that they never will. Here are a few of the answers that I did get from the representative of the Douglas County Health Department in early July. The test is given correctly. If the test is given correctly, it is only approximately 30% accurate. The validity and reliability are considerably less if given incorrectly. According to the representative there, have been recorded false negatives but no false positives. That is highly inaccurate because you cannot have a test that is accurate, consistent, valid, and reliable if you are getting false negatives and positives. The virus has mutated to sustain its own existence and will continue to, much like the flu. Therefore, a vaccine will not eradicate it. Regarding social distancing, there is not a distance that is definite to totally protect us. 6 foot, 12 foot are only suggestions, like wearing masks. Masks are not the cure. The numbers will only increase. This has been seen within the last month with the numbers continuing to rise regardless of wearing masks and social distancing. The only way that you can totally protect yourself is to wear a self-contained suit that would totally separate you from the environment around you. Additionally, by touching the masks and then your eyes and nose, you increase your chances of infecting yourself and those around you. Many do not even show signs. Therefore, there's no protection against that. Supposedly, there's a 14-day incubation period in which signs begin showing. Often they do not. What this means is the carrier hosts that are not symptomatic are and will continue to spread the virus, even with so-called social distancing, masking, and good hygiene. Once you've had the virus is considered dead. The virus will test positive. This only further skews the testing results and accuracy. I pose this question to you. Have you ever stopped and watched a person wearing a mask? How about observing ourselves? I did. In fact, 2 days ago, while having a conversation with a highly educated professional, the individual touched his mask 107 times in 2 minutes. By doing this, he potentially contaminated his hands, and then he touched his eyes, his nose, and his mouth after becoming frustrated by it itching and the people not understanding what he was saying. Administration, according to the email and voicemail I received on August 7th, 2020, you have already made your decision. Therefore, I have little faith in anything I've said having been heard or will affect any additional thought. Let me say this. Evening, the parents in this district see this reentry plan as a way for the district to cover itself legally and attempt to appease most. The term close cohort does not meet social distancing guidance from the CDC or the health department. As one teacher put it when asked about the term during orientation this week, it is so that if a kid gets sick, the health department can track who the individual has been in contact with while at school. Restricting who the students can be around, talk to, socialize with is exactly opposite the reason we send our kids to public schools. I get it, you're trying to open school, make everyone happy, and keep the state and federal funding. By doing so, the district is putting our children at higher risk, not only by the health effects of some of these decisions, but also the social aspects regarding this period. by putting two people or more who cannot get along or work well together or who have personalities that conflict sets a stage for a dangerous situation within our school. In recent months and years, social bullying has been at the forefront of discussions in media. I ask you to consider these things. I'm 100% in favor of personal hygiene, the deep, rigorous cleaning of facilities, temperature checks prior to entering the facility to limit and reduce the exposures. Once an affected individual has entered the facility is contaminated regardless of the cleaning efforts. I am not in favor of any mandated requirements. Masking only adds health concerns. Some items are being considered to increase the droplets dispersed into the air, increasing the infectiousness of this virus and others. I am 100% against the restriction of students' movements more so than normal within the school. I am 100% against placing students in a lockdown situation without the existence of an imminent danger. The CDC and health departments cannot stop this virus. They have proven that. The numbers continue to grow despite best laid action plans. Many infected don't know that they are sick or they simply ignore the signs. Most school-age kids show minimal symptoms. If you have the virus, and those who show severe effects typically have underlying issues. The virus is an illness and some have died. This is true with many illnesses, not just this virus. It is a sad and horrible thing, but it is life. We get sick. Our society is either scared to death, uninformed, or misinformed. I honestly heard people this week say that they were glad that their parents and grandparents were dead so that they did not have to deal with this. And as far as they were concerned, we should wear masks and social distance for the rest of our lives. Who in their right, well-informed and educated mind is glad their loved ones are dead? The numbers are skewed, and the only way that we can change that is by understanding and knowing the real numbers. None of us want the virus, but it is here, and we have to improvise and adapt. We have to live our lives aware, but not in fear. I believe that if we take precautions personally, those who are concerned do what you feel is right for you. But do not mandate what I can do or decide what is best for me. I still live in America, free. Parents, it is our job as a parent to protect our kids. If they are sick, keep them at home. This is in everybody's best interest. Do not pump them full of ibuprofen and Tylenol and send them to school. I pose this question to the administration. What is the district's action plan when the number of cases spike after re-entry? If the media is here, report the unbiased facts, not lies, and stop using scare tactics to create mass hysteria. Thank you for your time.
Thank you for your comment. Our next item is the Ava Board Spotlight. The first is our new Ava R-1 faculty.
Okay, I'm going to ask each principal, we'll start with Dr. Hall, to introduce his new staff members. And we'll take a picture with everybody at the end.
Okay. So we have two new staff members in the elementary, Devin Donnelly, who'll be teaching first grade, she's not here tonight, and Miss Kathy Rader, who'll be teaching second grade for us. Excited to have somebody with Mrs. Rader's experience come to Ava, and we also have a great mentor for Mrs. Tabor, who's sitting next to her.
At the middle school, we don't have any of our new staff members here with us, unfortunately, tonight. We have Michaela Bristol. She's going to be a middle school para for a student for us. We have Chase Gastineau. He is going to be our PE and health boys. He's also coach for football, basketball. We have Miss Stephanie Allen. She is our new PE teacher in the middle school for the girls, and she's also volleyball, basketball coach. And we also have Ms. Bailey Loge, and she is 6th grade language arts.
We have 5 new staff members from the high school here tonight. We have Mrs. Catherine Pearson right over here. She's our health occupations teacher who will be teaching CNA classes and also is going to be a part-time nurse. This is Mrs. Mindy Thorne, and she's social studies department. This is Mrs. Kimberly Woods. She's in the math department. This is Mrs. Reagan Quackenbush. She is our Jobs for American Graduate Specialist, which is an at-risk program. And then we also have Sherry Lee back here. She's a special education teacher.
All right, so if you guys will all come up, we're going to take a picture right over there.
I'm gonna be tall for
You could have till someone else.
Here we go. 1, 2, 3.
You gotta take your mask off for that. Can we do another one, Mr. Dalton? I didn't call it your fault.
We'll get back up there.
I'm so sorry. I don't want to be the alcohol. I'm so sorry. I heard it.
All right. 1, 2. Gotcha.
Next spotlight is Valerie Reese, Douglas County Health Department.
Valerie, if you just come forward just for a second. So Valerie Reese is the director of the Douglas County Health Department. Valerie and I talk about every other day now, and probably have since March, and has been so open to our conversations, helps me find information. We both listen to the same calls from the Department of Health and Senior Services, which obviously is the health department for the state of Missouri, and try to compare notes on what we heard and read the same information. She and I walked through classrooms this week and looked at all of our classrooms, and her health department will help us contact trace as well if we do have a positive case in our schools. So I just appreciate her willingness to share resources. She has helped us get gloves and gowns and clear face shields for teachers and lots of items. I just appreciate what she's done and appreciate her individually.
Appreciate the school and everything.
Thank you, Valerie, very much.
Appreciate you.
Next is our principal and director report. Elementary principal, Mr. Clint Hall.
All right, just want to give a shout out to our teachers. They've been working not just this week, but for several weeks to get the elementary ready to come back to school. A couple of things I heard, they really appreciate our shift in format for our PD days at the beginning of this year to allow them more time to work and prepare for the year upcoming. We had a change in our open house format this year. Before, we'd have 2 hours, and they would just come whenever. This year, we had 3 hours as by appointment. They appreciated that they were able to focus on one family at a time and address individual needs and start that relationship building process.
Thank you. Middle school principal, Ms. Patty Nelson.
As Dr. Hall alluded, we did have a shift in our open house, and we had some positive feedback comments from parents as they were coming through that they appreciated the amount of time that they got to spend with the teachers. I do want to recognize our teachers have worked hard, not only rearranging their classrooms and trying to get those seating charts down, but they have also been creating their Google Classrooms for their virtual instruction. And I'm proud to say in the middle school, they have put videos on there, introducing themselves to those virtual students and setting those expectations, so we're really proud of them. Also, as you know, last year we had Project Lead the Way curriculum. We had 2 teachers trained, 6th and 7th grade science. First week in August, Ms. Becky Strong, who teaches our 8th grade science students, she was also trained, and she will be offering the flight and space curriculum. So we're glad for that opportunity for our students.
Thank you. High school principal, Dr. Teresa Nash.
We also kind of modified our open house. Instead of just having freshman orientation and new student orientation this year, we opened the building up 2 different nights and had 2 different grade levels on each night so that it would decrease the number of people in the building. Our parents and our students and our teachers seem to enjoy that. Our teachers have been very appreciative of the 4 days that they've had to work on Google Classroom this week and getting prepared for our seated as well as our virtual students. We are excited to see our students back on Monday, the ones who will be seated, and anxious to talk to the ones who are virtual. We are starting some new classes this year. We have a coding class, our health occupations class. We also have a project lead the way computer essentials class, so we're looking forward to a great year.
Thank you. Special Services Director, Ms. Melissa Dalton.
With our department, our teachers have been working really hard since last week. About Thursday, I would say, we started reaching out to all of our students with IEPs. We have a little over 200. And with those students, we're either doing a new IEP or adding a Form G to address distance learning. So since last week on Thursday, we've held a little over 40 meetings. And so my teachers have been working really hard getting that information in so we can make sure we stay in compliance.
Thank you. Our Maintenance Director, Mr. Monty Valentine.
We're uncharted waters here. We're all in this together. My department's here to help. We can be patient. We can't help everybody all at the same time. But we're going to get through this.
Thank you. Food Services, Ms. Kayla Harper.
I gave all of you a packet that shows our menus for the next 6 weeks or so you can look over. There's 2, one's for elementary, one's for middle school, high schools, they're the same. Everything will be packaged in to-go containers, and kindergarten through 8th will have a process where they rotate between either eating in the cafeteria or the classroom, and then high school will have 3 different locations that they're assigned to pick up their meals.
Thank you. Next item, Executive Administration Reports.
Okay.
Dr. Dial.
So, bring that spreadsheet out, please. Obviously, we're just getting started with funding. We've had our July payment, we got our August payment today. And I think we've talked about, so the state adequacy target, line 3, was slated to be at 6375 this year. Obviously, with the reduction in tax revenue over the past several months, they have made some adjustments. So in July, it was prorated at 55%. So we should have received, we were slated to receive, go all the way over, sorry. No, that'll work, go back, I'm sorry, that'll work. If you go to line 6, district modified totals, so we should have received $8,618,000 minus our local effort. So in order to pay us for the full year in state funding, we should have received $5,551,892.70. That changes to in August because of, you see a higher student enrollment on line 2. But then if you drop down where I put in line 9, line 17 proration, that drops so much on line 9 because in July it was a 55% proration factor. In August, so this month they removed that proration factor to 77%. So we're going to see a reduction in state funding throughout the year. They hope to be level with no proration factor or no reduction by mid-spring. Is what Desi sent out today. So we're going to lag behind, but we'll catch up, hopefully, on our state funding by March, April, May, somewhere in there. Does that make sense, what I'm saying? Go down a little bit. Classroom Trust Fund. We've talked about where the Classroom Trust Fund comes from. That comes from gambling revenue. So that was pretty good in July, dropped a little bit in August. Our Prop C dollars are the 1% sales tax from the month prior. We saw an increase in that. Obviously, that's been pretty strong the whole time, so people have been buying. The 1% sales tax includes raw food, which many state taxes do not. So with more people eating at home, less people eating out, that's been fairly strong for us. And then the transportation dollars, why it was $1 different, I don't know. They're just those are lagging behind. We will not see a true transportation payment until October. Those are what they were in June when we had a reduction in transportation. So we're fine overall. We'd obviously like to be being paid at the full formula rate of $63.75, but receipts in the state of Missouri are higher in August this year than they were a year ago. So that's a little odd. July was off because of tax receipts, because people could wait till July 15th to file their taxes, so you really couldn't make rhyme or reason for July tax receipts. But August is up as well. So hopefully we're seeing a little bit of a turnaround in the economy and we'll get caught back up. So, any questions with that?
Earlier in the year, you said, I just want to kind of get that in my head.
Yeah.
You actually budgeted $1 million deficit,
Correct.
but you said it would probably only be
Half a million. Yeah.
And now, I know there was money still sitting in there.
Yeah.
I guess it was from the CARES Act.
Yes.
They had money allocated for the previous fiscal year, and then they had some left over for this fiscal year, correct?
We received all of our CARES Act money last fiscal year.
So we got another $300,000.
We got $438,000 is what we received. We received 75% of that in May, and we received the rest of it in July, but we were able to back it up to June because we received a little late July.
So were you counting that money?
Yes, because that's what helped us increase our fund balance.
So we're still looking at a $500,000.
So, according to those figures, that's a $1.2 million shortfall from state dollars alone. Now, I think they'll catch up. Will they catch up to the full $63.75? I'm not sure about that. I do think we will deficit spend, but again, I think it's going to be less than $1 million. I think it's going to be $500,000 or so. That's my prediction at this point.
So I guess my bottom line question is now our total funds are like 5.1 million?
Correct.
So looking in your crystal ball,
Mhm.
where do you think we'll be at in our total funds at the end of this?
So we are at a 26.9% fund balance currently. I'm predicting that we're at about an 18.5% is my guess at this point. With the information that I have currently. That could change if they get, because we lost some money in our local revenue. If it turns around quicker and they fully fund the formula, that could change. We could be in the 20s. I don't believe that we will be higher than the 22.25 that we were at the beginning of last year. I think at the most, we'll be even, but I think we'll be 3 to 4% less. Okay. Piece of good news. Is your question?
Yeah, are you hearing anything about the, possibility of more money coming from the federal government?
So that was going really well and then it stopped.
Yeah.
So not at this point. The president did sign an executive order to extend some unemployment benefits. I would think it went from 600 to 300 on unemployment benefits, but they seem to be at a gridlock. Now that would have totally changed my perception if they would have given us, if that would have passed, because it was significant. It was more than we received currently, but that seems to be a complete gridlock at this point. They can't agree on anything.
The original deal was $105 billion.
Correct.
And both parties, the Senate and the House,
Yeah.
let's say the Democrats and the Republicans in the Senate had agreed to that amount, and the House had agreed to that amount. And now they're talking about throwing it all out the door in a mini bill.
Correct. At $105 billion, if you calculate that back down to what it would do for us, just in a percentage increase of what it was last time, is an astronomical fee. It was like $2.5 million.
For us?
For us,
Yeah.
yeah. It was $2.5 million. $105 billion is a lot of money. So,
Yeah, but they passed out trillions before, we only got how much?
well, they 2.2 trillion, but our amount was less than 105 billion. So this one was, I can't remember what that number was. It was more, it didn't reach as many people, but it reached fewer organizations at a higher rate. I guess that's the way to say it. So the states weren't getting as much money, K-12 was getting. So, all right, so summer school attendance, we talked about, obviously, we ran our summer school differently than we have, just for necessary reasons. We were down, when I say 14 students, that doesn't make a lot of sense to you. We were down a lot more than 14 students. But how you figure the number of students in summer school is you take the total number of hours attended, you divide that by 1,044. So 14 times 1,044, Mr. Dalton, is what? So, come on.
I can run it up.
14,616. We had 14,616 less hours attended in summer school. We just had a lower attendance rate. So that equates to about $90,000 in revenue, because those summer school numbers roll to our weighted ADA for the fall, and that was part of that reduction, because I just assumed our summer school numbers would be less. But here's the piece of good news. Our enrollment is once again up. So in 2017, our pre-K through 12 enrollment was 1311. In 2018, it was 1344. In 2019, it was 1361. And as of today, it's 1417. So that's good news. Not that I like this, but our virtual enrollment has helped our class numbers. We would have been you never anticipate, it's just hard to anticipate that big of an enrollment jump. Now I think that will equal out a little bit. We will have some kids transfer out. I think we had one transfer out today. That family moved. We'll start getting records requests from other schools. Maybe they're not starting right next week. We'll start getting those. Other states start, if they moved out of state start later than we do. So that really will settle out. We'll know that number really in September. But we do like the numbers that we see currently. We have been approved for what they call our AMI plan. I think Mr. Dalton has talked to you about an AMI plan. So it's alternate methods of instruction. So our AMI X plan, if we did have to go hybrid or if we did have to go virtual, which is not what we want to do, we have been approved from the Department of Elementary and Secondary Education for that plan. We talked about, MSBA talked about it's much more rigorous, and it is. We had to explain how we were going to reach all kids. And so we could explain that. We had a little better information than we've had in the past. So we did get approved for that, I think, early last week. So, let's see. In front of you, you have a draft copy that Mr. Sawyer has developed about athletics and activities, about people attending athletics and activities. Again, it's not been sent out. You know, we are doing all of the cleaning. Kids aren't wearing face coverings when they are in rigorous activities or when they're practicing. We're not doing that. There are some probably doing that. We are asking them, you know, when they're in the dugout or when they're on the sideline, if they can't be away from each other, we do ask them at that point to mask. We are screening kids as they come into practice. We are taking their temperatures. We are not using, you know, in football you use one large hydration station that has sprayers. And multiple kids use it. We are not using that just because multiple hands on it Kids will have individual water bottles, and we actually kind of shifted because they'll drink more than 12 ounces of water. So for game nights, we have purchased water like that. We bought a pallet of water yesterday, so we would take those with us to games, and plenty for each kid to drink. We disinfect the equipment. We've been doing this all summer, though. We disinfect the equipment after each use. And then transportation, obviously, same thing we're doing with our buses. The return to play, you really, if a kid is positive for COVID, Misha has a very strict return to play policy. We have to follow that. And then spectators, you can read about spectators. We will ask them to social distance. We will ask, we're going to open up the end zone in the football field like we do for big playoff games, so people can spread out. You know, those that don't want to sit closer to somebody, you provide more seating capacity at our football field. We don't anticipate that issue in other venues. So, any questions I can answer for you about that? And I know you just got it, so if you want to think about it, take it home and read it, you're more than welcome to. And I did provide, this month we got our bus inspection numbers back. I did provide those for you for your review as well. I think Michael got them in the paper last week. So. That's all I have, sir.
Thank you. On Mr. Dawes.
Yeah.
No, wait a minute.
On the bus inspection thing,
Yes.
I think it was last month, maybe in the regular meeting, we talked about keeping files on the buses. Did you get anywhere with
Yep,
it?
we've done it. On our buses, yes. So they turn in, so we put a mailbox at James's maintenance garage. So, and so I checked on what had happened. So they weren't turning those inspection sheets in, and not any fault of their own until they turned in all their trip sheets. So every night when they drive our buses, we're going to ask them to put that inspection sheet in at the bus barn or the bus maintenance garage, and then James can open it up and you can see the next morning if there's any issues with any buses.
That's the Dan Johnson thing, that's just a
No, I get
state
it.
law.
I get it.
It might not hurt to call the highway patrol and say, hey, we want to be sure we're compliant. This is how we got our files set up. Would you?
Yeah, we call Inspector Wood.
Yeah.
Absolutely. So we do, keeping track of that. We have used several of your recommendations.
It's a serious thing, liability wise.
Yep, absolutely.
So all the trip tickets are turned in each night then? Or
So on our buses,
Yeah.
yes, are turned in each night.
And James is the one
Yeah,
that
James
pulls them the next morning?
He has the key.
And then if he sees
Yep.
one that's broke down, what's the protocol? Do they lock that bus out or? do
Yes,
they-
we wouldn't use it,
Mhm.
and he fixes it. So we would just move them to a different bus. We very rarely have all 8 out at once.
So James is going to be the one that's responsible to see if the files are kept.
He keeps it, he has a file cabinet in his office for each bus, so yes, he would do it. He's the bus mechanic.
So is he the one that, if a teacher's wanting to do a field trip,
So-
is he the one that they contact
No,
to?
they contact Coach Sawyer,
Okay.
and he schedules the trip, and then he sends that to James. So he schedules the buses, and if there's a bus out of order, James would let Coach Sawyer know that that bus can't be used. Like right now, we have one that can't be used because we're waiting on a partner to get here. So we know not to schedule that bus.
So if that bus is scheduled for, like, say, that Friday morning,
Yeah.
James is the one that makes sure that it's ready to go and
Yep.
it's fueled up?
That's
and
correct.
it's- yeah.
That's correct.
Something that you're probably doing, that if not, it needs to be done when James repairs something, whatever's written down on the trip sheet, when he repairs it, he needs to make a note
Yep.
of that, put it in the file
Yep.
with that and everything, that
Yep.
if if DOT ever comes,
Correct.
that's one of the things
Yeah.
they do look at.
Mr. Johnson said that last week, or last month, when we started doing that.
Good. Mr. Dalton?
And follow up on something Dr. Dow touched on. You said that AMIX plan. Basically what that is, I think last time we met, we talked through some of those scenarios if we had students that were virtual and how we were going to try to get information to them, students that have internet, students that don't have internet. What that process looked like, we basically we had to write out what our steps were going to be, what our plans were to serve those students. So that's why every district in the state had to turn in to have approved. And they got to follow up just for some clarification, some additional information. And so that's what that looks like again, if we found ourselves in those scenarios where we were hybrid or virtual, and you have to have those plans in place. Basically, the State Department was wanting to review what those plans were. Something else the principals kind of touched on. You've heard me talk in the last several meetings about all the training our teachers came to this summer. Typically when we do our back to school in-service days, we're doing training. It's a lot of hours just going through some state requirements, different things. And what we did this year is basically make sure our teachers had time to get with their classrooms, get with their team of teachers, and start planning out. We're going to implement and use the training that we had already done. That was some feedback we got from them. I know as an admin team, as we talked through that. Back to school is a stressful time anyway. Back to school, given so many of the unknowns, is extra challenging this year. So that's why we made those adjustments. We had more in-service days planned for the beginning of school this year than we have since I've been here. So
We were hoping to get all that training out of the way.
We were. But what we did just as we talked to our teachers and looked through some of those plans, give them as much time as possible to get ready and talk through those scenarios and ask questions truly. If they had follow up with some of the training, there was time to do that. If they, I know Dr. Dow spent a lot of time in classrooms. I spent a lot of time being available to follow up with training, but just trying to give teachers as much time as possible to feel as comfortable and as ready as possible.
So I probably want to just clarify, and I should have done it earlier. So I've been to every classroom in the district, some of them multiple times. So I know there's some questions. So at the elementary level, we do have them in cohort groups. Teachers can change who those are. I've asked them to do that on Mondays, so we can contact trace if somebody is positive. I can't envision an elementary student having a mask on unless they ride a bus to school and at parent pickup or on the bus at home. Other than that, during the day, I don't see any time at all that an elementary student would have a mask on. At the middle school level, is the same. The only time I would foresee them having a mask is if they rode a bus to school, if they rode a bus home, possibly at parent pickup unless we can get them spread out. And we will ask them to put one on during class change. So 5 minutes. And then, because we are able to spread out. High school is in pretty good shape, minus a few classrooms. We moved a classroom yesterday, I think. We moved a classroom yesterday to a larger room so they could spread out in that room. High school teachers have become innovative in their seating arrangements. We moved one class, science class, to the science lab. And they are going to do their best, depending on the number of kids they have in their class, to spread them out so kids won't have to wear masks. So teachers are being very thinking outside the box for a teacher. Lots of teachers like straight rows, and that's the way they like it, and that's great, because that's But it looks different, but I have been impressed with teachers as they've thought through this process, because they don't want kids to have to wear a mask all day. They don't want to have to wear a mask all day. So they have worked through that process to where it's going to be the exception versus the rule, I believe, as we move through.
What about inline for cafeteria?
So they're going
Are they masked
to,
or
yeah,
not?
so they will be, because when they're changing classes, so when they go get their lunch, but then when they return to eat, obviously. So very, very limited amount of time.
And would level 3, the hybrid, when they're in school, be about the same? Or was that going to
So-
change quite a bit?
That would reduce quite a bit, because you reduce half the kids that are here. So you would reduce.
So you wouldn't add time for a mask? It
would reduce time.
Reduce time, okay.
Because, well, I mean, you're still changing classes, but what I'm saying is if there was a classroom that too many kids in and they had to wear a mask, when you reduce when you go to half the kids, they would be able to social distance themselves.
The school's supplying all these masks?
Yes, correct.
How often do they get a new mask?
So they're getting, we have 3 types of masks. So we have these, which every student currently gets one. Okay, so, and they're washable. They can be washable. If they don't bring one, they get a surgical mask, which would be a one-day deal. They throw it away. We got another, the state emergency management gave us 3,000 more the other day. Those are cotton masks that are washable as well. So so if they get a new one every day, if they're using a surgical mask, these are washable, so they can wash them every day if they want to.
I think probably when the weather gets a little cooler,
Yeah.
you're probably gonna need more than one mask a day.
And we may need to order more, so. And I don't disagree with that statement. So we had 10,000, well, we had 10,000, we've dispersed several of them, of the surgical masks. The health department got for us, and when we get down to 5,000, we're ordering more, and she's good with that. Okay.
One other thing I wanted to point out that I didn't include in that report, as part of our back to school, I think we started this last year, actually holding a sub training for the subs that we have already signed up. Did 2 different sessions. I did one late last week. Next, Miss BJ is going to go through that one long, but she believes she can be more efficient than I was. I'm surprised you know I tell stories. But certainly given some of the changes to the course of the school day, able to answer some questions. Had a lot of good ideas that came out of that last year. I know we added subs when they come in, they're given a lanyard. We added a contact list with phone numbers on the back of that badge, which made perfect sense as we talked through that. Just some really good feedback that comes back out of those meetings. Subs have a unique perspective and experience during the course of the day. But we've got our next one. Come on.
So DESE just passed a waiver for substitutes. Currently, a substitute has to have 60 hours of college credit in order to sub. They just passed a waiver last week, or no, this week, I guess, earlier this week, because they believe that the substitute pool will be less to allow 20 hours. You do not have to have 60 hours of training, but you can go through a 20-hour training course to be a sub. That's only, so there's some question whether that's until the state of emergency goes away, or if that is for the whole school year, or if that's here and beyond. We're not sure about that. They didn't explain that. They just said it's starting now. So they have not released the approved training yet as of today, but we will be looking into that and see if that's something we want to work with.
Do we have enough subs?
So we currently have,
The ones on our list that was uploaded.
Yeah.
We've only had a few that said that they were
21.
ready.
Is that right? I think it's 20 some subs. We have 2 currently that are not comfortable. is that correct?
But we've added some.
Yeah, but we've added some as well. So we don't know that. We think we do, we're not sure.
I saw one of the other schools had asked for, well, they offered jobs for permanent subs.
Yeah.
Do you know, that's kind of a new thing to
Yeah,
me.
so I've done that before. So you hire somebody, and you can do it a couple of different ways. You hire somebody in the district at the base teacher salary to be, they're the first sub called every day. Or if there needs to be a long-term sub in a classroom, they're the first person that's the long-term sub in that classroom. Really depends on the size of the district you're in. That's something we could explore if the board was interested in that. You know, those people usually ended up working into a teaching position the next year. But if they were in that position for the second year, they stayed at the base salary, they didn't move. So I'm open to that conversation, absolutely, because I have done it in a couple other districts.
I just never heard of it before, and I saw it on one of the job listings.
When there was a surplus of teachers, it was easy to find those people. Now that there's not a surplus of people, it becomes more difficult. But, yeah, we could absolutely have that conversation in spring.
Is that something you think that we'd need for
I
this
don't know.
district?
So
When we call somebody, is it pretty easy to get a sub?
there are a few days during the year, cold and flu season, that we run short of subs. There are, and then, you know, and we have to double up, or teachers cover teachers. I'd have to look to see how many days that is. And I want to look into that to have more information before I answer your question. Is that all right?
What I was thinking, if we have the COVID thing and we start having to isolate teachers, you know, we show up to have school, we don't have.
Staff is the issue for us. You know, that if we're not careful, and our teachers know that, that's what could shut us down quicker than anything. Not be able to have enough staff to cover it. I would agree with that. That's my biggest concern. So, Mrs. Tabor got that concern today. So, okay.
Thank you. Moving on, the next is our discussion and action items. First item is annual Secretary of the Board report.
So this is done every year. It's a requirement of the Department of Elementary and Secondary Education, and it's prepared in our office, but then it is approved by the auditor before it is uploaded. It looks at money spent in the 4 funds that we have. So, you know, we have the general fund, we have the special revenue fund, which is Fund 2, which pays teacher salary or certified staff member salaries, and then we have the capital projects fund. So, and then it really, as you go through it, is a 28-page document, but it just shows where those dollars were from, where the transfers went. It does show our fund balance, which we've talked about tonight, but prior to tonight as well, is at 26.91%. It already has been uploaded to DESE, but it is something that the board needs to approve as well.
Do we have a motion to approve the annual Secretary of the Board report? Dan makes a motion. Do we have a second?
I'll second.
Mark seconds. Any discussion? All those in favor? 7-0, motion passed. Next item, tuition rate for 2021.
Yes. So we set our tuition rate every August because we do have K-8 feeder schools that send their kids to high school here. Those are based on expenses out of certain funds. So our tuition rate last year was $6,891.72. Our tuition rate this year would be $6,776.19.
We need a motion to approve tuition rate for the 2021 school year. Troy makes a motion. Do we have a second? Dan seconds. Any discussion? All those in favor? Motion passed, 7-0.
Let's see the sheet that you have right there. Let's see the sheet right here.
Yep, I'm going to see.
No, you're good. So our transportation rate, so we don't charge this because we don't run buses to Plainview to pick up their kids. We don't run buses to Skyline, but we've always updated this every year in case that's something that we have to do. So our transportation rate for 2021 is $1,033.19.
We need a motion to approve the transportation rate for 2021. Do we have a motion?
I'll make that motion.
Troy makes a motion, Dan seconds. Any discussion? All those in favor? Motion passed, 7-0. Next item, board treasurer discussion. We had, once before when we elected officers, when the new board was seated, we put Dina in as the treasurer, and we needed to pay bills, and we had to take her out, and so now we want to put her in time to where we can get everything lined up good, and this is open for discussion. And motions.
So the only thing I would request is if that's what the board chooses to do, we'll have to buy Mrs. Parsik a treasury bond, which is right at $100. But in order for us to operate on a daily basis, the treasurer has to grant the rights for our central office staff to perform the daily financial functions. So there are transfers, there are bills, we have to take deposits, we take daily deposits, we do daily transfers. We have to receipt money that comes from DESI. You know what our business office does. There's a lot of things that go on a daily basis in our business office, and Mrs. Sterling has to be granted rights to pay the bills. Mrs. Croston has to do the right, on payroll. There's just a lot of functions to do.
Who has to grant that right?
She would, as the board treasurer.
Are you good with that?
Yeah.
So I don't want to have to order receipts. So here's a funky thing. So we ordered all of our receipts for the year. So it says board treasurer on it. So they would sign your name and initial it with their name. Something like that. So I don't have to order 2,000 receipts or something. See what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
So if you're going to do it, I really probably need 2 motions. But talk you through it.
What do those motions need?
The first one is you're going to appoint her as the treasurer, and that central office staff is granted permission to perform the daily operations of the business office.
One motion or two?
You can do it 2. You can do it in 1? Okay.
You can do it in 2, but it needs to be after she is bonded.
Correct. Yeah. So once she's bonded, then you can officially be the treasurer. So that won't take long.
What will be the advantage of her becoming the treasurer? Because any of us can go in there and look over the paperwork and all the finances and things like that anytime we want.
Well, one thing is every audit we get every year, that's one of the negatives that we have. It's probably about the only one we have, is we don't have an extra set of eyes legally in there that can look over things. So is that correct?
It's correct. I'm not sure that's going to solve that issue, but
it'll be a larger percentage of eyes looking at it.
That's correct, sir.
So that would be one of the benefits of it. Probably another benefit would be there's some community members that have some doubt about some things. There's always someone that doesn't like the way something's done. Having that extra set of eyes will be something they can look at and see that we've made an effort to take care of. So.
I'm sorry. Can I just clarify one thing? We do post all of our revenues and bills.
Yeah.
And our ASBR, we post all that online.
Right.
Okay. I'm sorry, I just wanted to clarify.
Here's one of the things though about that I don't think an audit is ever gonna see. When somebody, if I go buy a truck part, I write on there what that truck part's for and which truck it goes for. That's the detail more that, to me, that you would be looking for that the audit wouldn't really see. I mean, when we, okay, pay the bills, you know, there's not much detail to it. And I don't know anybody more qualified, or, you know, Dina would be to go in there and look at that. She knows more than all of us about it.
Our audit does look at the actual purchase orders, just so you do know. That has detail on it with receipts, and but they do look at that when they come on.
Oh, I just to make it clear, I don't have a problem with Dina going through there and looking at that at all. Or if you want to make her treasurer, do you want to be the treasurer?
I'm fine with it.
Okay, so I mean, I'm okay with that. I just, and as long as we work out these kinks, that we don't, you know, that everything goes smoothly. You know, we don't want it to, we just don't want this to cause, it kind of held things up a little bit last time. We don't want it to cause any more issues like that, I think. It seems to run smoothly, in my opinion, and I don't have a problem with somebody, Dina, or any of us wants to go in there and look at that. We obviously can anytime we want, so it just didn't seem like there was much need in it. And appointing her official treasurer, but again, I don't have a problem with being the treasurer. Just don't want it to cause any issues with things going, any extra hurdles.
We have a motion to appoint Dina as treasurer. Dan makes a motion. Do we have a second?
Does it need to say after she's bonded on this one?
Yes.
So,
You made the motion.
I'll make a motion to nominate Dina as treasurer after she's bonded.
Thank you.
that's be right.
Do we have a second?
Second that.
Troy seconds. Any more discussion? All those in favor? All those opposed? 4 in favor, 3 opposed. All right, we also need a motion for Dina to approve DJ and
DJ, I do part of it, central office staff.
central
Perform
office.
the daily operations, and I gave that policy to you of all those daily operations, that we can perform all those tasks that are outlined within the policy. And that's policy, you got it in front of you, don't you?
Somewhere.
Yeah, it's right here.
Right there.
All of the tasks of the treasurer in policy, what's the number?
BCC-1.
BCC-1.
All right, we need a motion for Dina to appoint central office
To
staff,
approve central office staff.
approve central office staff to do daily normal
The duties outlined in DCC-1-1. DCC-1.
So can I just make that motion, or do I have to say it all? I think
Did you
DJ's
get it,
right.
DJ?
I got it.
Okay, so I'll make that motion.
Troy makes the motion. Do we have a second? Dan seconds. Any discussion?
I have a question just to clarify. So, if she's reelected, does that stay if she's
It's
not?
reappointed every year.
Okay, that's what I wondered.
You have to reappoint officers every year.
Great, okay.
Okay. Any more discussion? All those in favor? All those opposed? 5 in favor, 2 opposed.
You're gonna have to come sign your wife, we're gonna do bank documents again, guys. Dan, well, we have to do all those bank documents again.
Again?
Yeah, because we're changing.
Can we take that back? Next item, discussion regarding impossible investment tool.
This is just something that I wanted to bring to you. So we currently, with our bank bid, because interest rates were low at that time, we get the Fed rate. So they pay off the Fed rate. Previously, we were a little higher than that. We got Fed plus a certain amount. We have an opportunity, and we can talk about this for the next 2 months, it doesn't matter, but Missouri Capital Asset Treasury, it's MOCAT. There's another one called MOSIP within the state of Missouri, and it's operated by PMA, which is an investment firm that handles public dollars. So our money has to be protected, so it has to be protected with securities. So we can't lose money. Public dollars can't lose money. So MOCAT is paying currently 0.15. Not a tremendous amount more, but it's paying more than the 0.10. So if we could draw more interest, I think that's a quality thing. If we did want to move forward with this, I would bring you more, if you were interested, I would bring you more information. And I think we should start off slow with it. But this is reserve dollars that you can invest and withdraw those monies whenever you want to. You're not locked in like a CD for a period of time. But I just wanted to bring that to the board and see if there was interest among the board members to move.
This is a new startup.
This one is, MOSIP has been around forever. PMA, the investment firm, has been around for years upon years. This MOCAT is a fairly new one. They have, as of last week, there was about $100 million invested in it, or pledged to it. But it is newer than MOSIP. But PMA, the investment firm, is not new. And this MOCAT is paying a higher rate than MOSIP.
But with everything going on in the world today,
Yeah.
is it really smart to start moving money?
I just wanted to bring the opportunity to you. So it's paying a higher interest rate, it's secured just like it is at the bank. And I would want to investigate further too before we made any decision. I just wanted to see if there was interest among the board to look further into it. I don't think I have enough information to make a recommendation to you, but I wanted you to know about it.
Well, what we've had for a while. It works pretty well.
Yeah.
I mean, you know, best I can remember, we said that they basically almost did us a favor by taking it, because most banks wouldn't even.
Correct. That is correct.
So I'm in favor of just staying where we're at, because the percentage rate you're talking about is just a minuscule amount.
Yeah, it is. It is.
And who knows, we might be able to go to Stockton and say, hey, can you bump this a little?
Stockton, they're in a 5-year lot.
And we voted that in before you got
So,
it.
anyway, that's fine. That is absolutely fine. I didn't want to not bring it to the board to get their opinion. So, anybody?
Yeah, I agree. If everything's been going smoothly.
Yep.
That's a pretty small amount.
Yep.
I think we're good.
Okay.
Anybody else got anything to say about the investment rule? Next item is conflict of interest ordinance, policy BBFA, and this is something we need to do, whatever other year.
Every other year, it allows you to fill out the short form instead of the long form for the Missouri Ethics Commission. Says we will follow policy BBFA as a board.
I assume we just need to approve it.
Yep.
Need a motion to approve the conflict of interest ordinance. Mark makes a motion. Do we have a second? Troy seconds. Any discussion? All those in favor? Motion passed 7-0. Next item, approval of MSBA full maintenance agreement.
So, for as many years as I know, Ava has been part of MSBA, their full maintenance policy service. So what that provides is, in order to keep us updated with federal and state laws, to be sure that we are meeting state and federal mandates. It does provide some legal service as well. So a legal hotline that you can call to get some advice about the policy. That cost is $3,479. That's over and above what it costs to belong to MSBA. I was asked to look at possibility of some other policy services within the state. And so I have some information there, and will tell you, August is not the time we would want to change policy services. So if we want to explore changing, we can absolutely do that, and we can start July 1 of next year if we want to look at that, and I can talk you through the other two policy services as well.
Were they comparable in price?
So one's cheaper. One has an upfront cost that's higher, but then it's lower yearly. There's one is the one that's higher. So let me just go through them real quick. So Ed Council, which is an attorney firm within the state of Missouri, and probably the premier attorney firm within the state for schools. They have a 3-part service. They help you with your handbooks, your employee manuals, and your Board of Education policies. They all line up all the way through, no questions asked. They actually do the work. I have to do a bunch of work, but that's how they line up. They only transition in the summer. They would not want to step in and do anything now because of the lengthy time it takes. They have an upfront cost first year of $12,500, but then it's $2,500 a year after that to update your services. They do ask, just because that you use them as your attorney for educational issues. We currently use Tom Minkus. They ask that you use them because it's their policies giving guidance on their policy. So Mayor is another not a consortium, but an organization much like MSBA. So Mayor has currently, I think they have 330 school districts that belong. Lots of school districts belong to MSBA and the Mayor. So they use MCE policies, which are written by our current attorney, Tom Minkus, but they are much more of a skeleton policy. They don't have a lot of detail in them. So, and it's fairly cheap to do them. So it's $1,000 up front and then $200 yearly updates. So it's significantly cheaper. And then to belong to Mayor, Mayor's 383 school districts. And obviously we could have presentations from those two groups. We could make that decision. I don't recommend making it tonight.
Do they offer the training for board members?
Mayor does.
Mayor
Yes.
does, okay.
We would, if we went to Ed Council, I would still say we either need to belong to MSBA or Mayor for their advocacy and their trainings. One or the other. But they both offer them.
When we pick up the phone and call MSBA, are we charged?
We are not.
Would the new one be?
So they both offer a legal hotline as well. Both services do, yes. And it's just like MSBA, well, Ed Council or Mayor was 15 minutes or less. Ed Council didn't really give you a time frame. But they do both have, it was a policy question, they do have a free legal hotline.
When would you recommend?
Before Christmas, before we make a decision, we not transition till next summer. If that's what the board chose to do.
Something to look at.
Yep. But we need to approve their full policy service for this year.
For this year?
Yes.
We need a motion to approve MSBA full maintenance agreement. Brandy makes a motion, Mark seconds. Any discussion? All those in favor? Motion passed 7-0.
Okay, so this is not for a motion, this is just information for you. The MSBA Update 2020A. This is a lengthy update based on federal law. We won't vote on it till next month. Mr. Dalton's actually doing a training in the morning. It's Title IX, discrimination. We have to appoint some people. We just always look at it the month prior. We won't vote on it until September, and there'll be more information the next month. But it's uploaded for your review.
Next item, Board of Education Policy, GCBDA, Professional Staff Short-Term Leave.
I was the one that asked that be put on the agenda. I don't know when I became aware of what we were paying teachers for sick pay and how the sick pay policy worked, but it was probably 8-10 years ago. And I've never quite understood why we paid teachers less money for their sick pay days than we paid a sub. The sick pay days, when you're paying somebody $30 or $40 or $50 a day, don't have too much value compared to a teacher wanting to take a day off. So I thought about it and looked at it, and I don't want, to me, the idea is to keep the teacher in the classroom because we have less discipline issues. We have better teaching going on. To me, everything about it's just a better scenario. I totally get it. Teachers want to take off just like the rest of us. Now, about any place that you want to go when, like where I work, I can't accumulate 100 days, but I get full pay for all those days. I have to take them in order to get full pay for them, and that's pretty much what teachers do. But I would like to, I don't want to touch the 50-day, 15 days at all. But I would like to bump up teacher sick pay to at least $80 for the 100-day plan. And if that's enough money to entice teachers to maybe switch, allow those teachers to sign over on that new plan.
Okay. I think I follow what you're saying. So, and this was all before me, the 07, 08, they could accumulate 100 days, and they could accumulate 100 days, and at that time, I think it paid maybe less than 20, I don't know. It was 25 when I got here. So, and that went to 30 in June of 19. And then anybody hired after the 07-08 school year or during the 07-08 school year could only accumulate 50 days. And they were paid at that time $43.75, and then we moved it to $52.50 in June of 19. I know in 07-08, teachers had the option of being paid down to 50. You guys correct me if I'm wrong. Being paid down to 50 and then being on the new plan. That's the way I understand it. It's the way it's been explained to me. So
I don't know if I explained it very well or not, but I only want to do the 100-day plan with 10 days a year. Don't want to touch, I won't say I'll never vote for it, but it's unlikely that I would ever vote to increase the pay for the 15-day plan.
for the, okay.
I just want to encourage, I want to make it worthwhile for a teacher that her sick days actually mean something, or his sick days. And use it as a tool to try to increase the attendance of the teacher, because when the teacher leaves the classroom, we pay her salary, plus we pay a sub-salary.
Correct.
If we don't pay the sub-salary, if we can keep that teacher in the classroom, if they only get 10 days a year and they never missed a day for 10 years, they would only have 100 days. If they took off 5 days, obviously, it would be 20 years for them to accumulate that 100 days. The one thing that, as you make this more valuable, the one thing that I don't think everybody understands is and you can correct me if I'm wrong, if they have 100 days of sick pay at $80 a day, that's $8,000. And they get that on June 30th on the year that they retire.
They get it, on June 30th, because sorry, I was thinking the June 30th termination, but their last pay, yeah, that's right.
And so the school would kick in another 0.145% into that. So that comes to $9,160 or something like that. If you divide that by 3, which considering if a teacher, her last 3 years of service is her highest income, and if you take that 9,000 and divide it by 3, you have $3,000 per year that it would add to that teacher's average income.
Only the 8,000 would count.
So
it'd be 8 divided by 3.
well, in any case, it's still,
Yeah.
it increases the retirement amount. I already had it figured up for the 1.45, so I don't know exactly what it's going to be, but using the $9,000 figure, it would increase a teacher's retirement almost $200 a month, which is, if you retired at 55, if you were a 30-year teacher and you retired at 55, that's what I figured it on, and you draw it till you're 75, you get $48,000 more in your retirement than, and I, maybe that's not enough money, maybe it's something we need to come back and visit later. But I think in retirement, I don't think anybody ever looks at it that way, that if you're increasing that almost $200 a month in retirement, it looks to me like that would entice.
Significant.
Yeah, so I would like to increase the teacher pay to.
I'm fine with that, I just want to clarify.
Okay.
I just want to make sure I'm understanding you correctly.
Okay.
So when I read the policy, and I've read it several times to make sure I understand it. So if you started before the 07-08 school year, you get 15 sick days. Unless you chose to take the reduction to 10 and get paid more. That's the way I read this. Because you said something about 15 and 10, and I just want to be sure I'm correct. That's the way I read this. So employees hired prior to the 2007-2008 school year, contract schedule as shown below, until September 7th, 2012, they had until employees hired prior to the 07-08 school year had until September 7th, 2012 to choose whether to follow the sick leave schedule below or to receive 15 days of sick leave annually. So they used to be 15. They had a certain amount of time. They had 5 years to whether to choose to stay at the 15 and get paid now the $30, or they could go down to the 10 and get paid the $52.50. So I just want to make sure I understand what you're proposing.
And the $52.50, I want to raise to $80. And
So-
I don't want to touch the other plan.
Okay, so those that accumulate to 100 still are at 30, because that's what, the 52.50 pays at 50 sick days. That's what I misunderstood you.
I think he's wanting to change the 100-day plan.
The 100-day plan pays $52.50, does it not?
No, page 30.
Okay. Well, in any case, I still want to raise it to $80.
Which one?
The 100-day plan.
Okay, so the 100-day plan,
And we're only going to give them 10 days per year on that plan.
okay, because currently they have 15.
Okay, well, I guess I'm going to have to create another real plan evidently.
So do we want to come back to it? You and I sit down and look through it and come back to this?
Okay.
Is that fair?
Yep.
Just make sure we're on the same page.
That's good.
So, and I don't know if you want to do it now or you're wanting, Dina sets on, and then somebody else, I think, signed up. Those are discussions we have in the spring with teachers. I don't care. That's up to you guys when you want to do it. But
Well, see, I think it's pretty much revenue neutral, at least for a while, because initially, there should be less sick days taken. I realize the COVID thing has got everything all messed up. But I've sat back for years and wanted to change this, but long before I was on board. And I have the opportunity now, and I don't want to waste that opportunity.
No, that's fine.
It may be fleeting.
We do, that's fine. Let's sit down and make sure that you and I are on the same page.
Okay.
Is that fair?
Yep.
Okay.
Next item, solar energy. I think we have somebody that was, I think you've talked
Yep.
to him, Dan's talked to him.
I've talked to 2 different companies regarding solar energy, and one of them was going to do an audit. I think he got busy, and I haven't heard back from him. Another one actually came and looked and has some concerns about if we have enough space. But if the board is interested in solar energy, I'm absolutely interested in moving forward and looking at it and bringing some ideas back to you.
Ron Strock, who's the one that you and I talked about. I called him, he didn't return my phone calls either for a while. And one day, he calls me up unannounced and he says, Dan, I'm sorry I haven't answered your calls. He said, I've got so many solar jobs to install. And he said, right now we have a 30% tax credit, which is getting ready to drop to 26%. And I'm trying to get all those jobs finished up. And apologize that he hadn't contacted us. Now, he's on vacation these 2 weeks. And the only reason I'm doing it without him here is I just want to get it moving forward and get something done. Now, what the proposal is he would come in for $1,500, I think you and him agreed on that, and do a feasibility study for a solar installation. And now I've known Ron, and we can get any company that the board wants to get, but I know Ron, he's a master electrician. He does quality work because he's worked with me for at least 5 years, or for us as a contractor. He has a website. He and I got to talking about solar maybe 5 years ago. And I was kind of interested in doing it at my house. And then about a year later, we're talking about it for the school, long before I was on the school board. I said, to me, that would be an educational thing for the kids, actually educational for the public. Kind of puts us, to me, where we look a little more modern. We've got, it's not a big deal, but we've got a small solar installation. But the most interesting thing about it that I thought, the thing that educated me the most is he has a website, and we were going to pull it up, but we couldn't. Evidently, the filters have got it. So on his website, he has, it tells how many watts of installation he has. It tells how much generation. You can break it down by the week. It shows you exactly how much electric it's charging right at that moment. You can break it down to the month. You can break it down to the lifetime of the installation. Now, the feasibility study would include, for instance, where would we want to put it?
Yeah.
He would go around and check all of our transformers to see. It's something really we probably ought to do about once every 5 years anyway. But he would go around to our transformers and see what the capacity would be of those transformers. And I don't know that we have any demand meters. Do you remember?
We have 2.
We have 2.
We have 2 on camp. We have 2 on district.
If, when he comes in and does his study, and he said he would do it for nothing, but he might not get the job, and he didn't want to come in and do all that work and not get paid for it. When he comes in and does that study, where those demand meters are, for anybody that doesn't know what a demand meter is, you pay your regular electric bill for what you actually used. And then the peak demand, like if you use 10 kilowatts versus, say you use 5 kilowatts on average, but for 15 minutes, you use 1,000 kilowatts, that's a higher demand. And if you have a demand meter, you pay simply, maybe a third of your bill will be in demand because you simply paid for the use of that higher output. because somebody had to install equipment that required, it cost more money to install that equipment. So, right now, tax credits are 26%. I don't know if the school would qualify for the tax credits, but he would qualify for the tax credits. He is willing to do an installation on solar at no cost to the school, and we only pay him for the electricity that that unit generates. So when it's paid off, which depending, that's something he would have to discuss with everybody. But when that's paid off, it belongs to us. And in the meantime, you know, you watch a Star Trek movie and you see all this information about photon torpedoes. Well, kids probably think photons are something that's on a Star Trek movie. Actually, photons are part of the electrical generation. So to me, it could be used in a math class. It could be used in a science class, a physics class. Public or anybody can go on the website. It's our website, basically. Anybody can see it. If you're in China, you can see it. I just don't see any negatives to it. Now, the payback, and don't hold me to this, but the payback, I think, would probably be about 12 years.
I was thinking 8 to 12, but he and I talking.
Yeah, and I don't want to say something that's not true, though. If he does the study, he comes in, that's for him to tell, not me.
Yeah.
But if he hooks up solar on a demand meter, the payback would probably be maybe 7 years. Because in the summertime, when it's hot and sunny and we're running all these air conditioners, we're going to generate more electricity during that time than we do when our peak demand is there for the air conditioning. Our peak demand is going to be there for the solar generation. So I just don't see a negative to it. I'm sure there's probably going to be something that comes up with it. So basically what I'm wanting to do is make a motion that we hire Ron Schrock for $1,500 to do the feasibility study.
And then if we have him put the solar in, he takes that bill away.
He'll figure that into the cost over the period of years.
Okay.
So the schools have no money up front at all.
So once you did the feasibility study, depending on, you probably need to go out and solicit. You might, I would need to look at that legally because of the amount of money that we're talking about, solicit proposals. You see what I mean?
The amount of what money,
The
what's that
amount,
amount?
the amount of money that you're talking about to install a solar system. I think he's very well qualified and would know it better than anybody else. But when you have the, you pay for a feasibility study, and if they, then you would probably need to go out to people that install solar and do an RFP or something like that, and then present, and the board choose who they want to go with. Does that make sense?
But we're just doing that to see if we want to have a better offer.
Yes.
That it's not a money thing.
Correct.
Because there is no money.
Correct. Yeah, what they're proposing. Some may do that, some may not. You know, some.
I'd be fine with that.
Yeah. Just to be sure that you're getting the best bang for your buck.
I have a motion on the floor to hire, what's his name?
Ron Schrock.
Ron Schrock.
To do a feasibility study. Do I have a second?
Second.
Troy seconds. Any discussion?
Is this something that, I mean, so we can just hire him like that? We don't have to offer any other,
For $1,500, I mean, at that
Right.
amount of money, you can.
so we don't have to open that up to other people to give us a feasibility study?
So then what you would do is you would solicit RFPs, so other people could present,
Okay.
but they could provide the same types of service.
I'm assuming after he comes back with his study, if we decide to do something solar, then we put it out there and let other people look at it and
Correct.
send us.
You just need to know if it's worth looking at,
Sure.
is what I think you're
Yeah,
asking for,
right.
Dan. Am I correct?
Right.
He's asking him to look at it, because he's the expert, if it's worth looking at. So,
I think it'd be a good idea to have some renewable energy here at the school that the students could look at. I mean, that's even getting into ag now. That's something they could, the ag class could bring their kids over. They could, I wonder if that, would Mr. Schrock come and point out things from time to time, you think, or?
He said if he does the installation, and this is again up to the school to decide, that he would take as many as 5 students to teach, to show how he did the solar installation while he was doing it, if we would assume the liability. He said his liability insurance probably wouldn't cover that.
Yeah, it wouldn't.
Okay. I think it'd be a good learning experience.
Any other discussion? All those in favor? Like the motion passed 7-0. Next item on the agenda, and the last item on the agenda. Board policy GCD, recruiting and hiring.
So that's probably one of my things I've been involved with. Over the years, I've been kind of concerned with the way it's done. I think it should be done a different way, although I'm from the private, I've always worked for private businesses, so it's a little bit different out there than in here. But anyway, I wrote down what I need to say so I don't mess up and say it wrong, so I'll just read it to you. And here we go. I believe in most situations, the hiring committees for the district are appointed with members not suitable to offer a hiring recommendation to the board. Some of the reasons I say this is because I don't believe that peers should be hiring their own peers. I don't believe that is good practice in the education system, just as it's not common practice in business community. Other reasons are that I have seen members of the committee being very young to in their education careers. A non-tenured teacher or a newly hired employee will not have the same understanding of the education system and the operations of the district as a 15 to 30-year veteran of the district. I also believe it's crucial to have as much experience with supervising, managing, and leadership skills on the committee as possible. Another issue I see is the same committee that directs the interviewing process also decides whether or not an applicant is allowed to appear before them for an interview. I have personally witnessed less qualified applicants interviewed for a position and more qualified being denied for that same interview. It is the board that has the responsibility and duty to hire and terminate employees of the district. In most cases, board members that are elected by majority vote have a wide range of knowledge and skills. Most have the ability to discern the information they will hear in an interview, and along with intellectual and a fair recommendation from members conducting the interview will ensure that the process is proper and not corrupt and make a wise decision in the end. I have looked into this process since my first term in office and have expressed my concerns numerous times. Although I have seen slight improvement in the process, it has not met the standards of what I would call an accurate, effective, and fair process. I would propose changes to be made to the policies already set in place to construct the interviewing committees for hiring to be made up of at least 3, but hopefully all elected board members. At least one, but hopefully both superintendents, the principal or principals of the building or position being filled, the head of the department of the position being filled, or the lead teacher in the subject being filled. I do believe it should be the principal and the department head directing the interview and giving the questions, with the superintendent and board members only questioning and giving input if they feel the process was inadequate or something was overlooked unintentionally. So, the only difference that we're looking at is the board will now would be actually seeing the interview take place. And also you would remove the peers from hiring their own, it's not very common for a person out in the private world to, let's say you work as an employee at Walmart, to be hiring the other employees that work right beside you. You normally have management and supervisors to do that job, or a human resource, a team to do that. So that's what I'm looking at. I'm just get all your other opinions, I guess.
Well, my opinion is, when I first got on the board, my hiring process was I get a sheet of paper, it's got a person's name on it, the hiring committee recommended this person, vote yes or no. And so, I don't know who, I do now, well, let me rephrase that. The people that are interviewed are on that form now. And everyone that applies is not necessarily on that form. I've had people come up to me after I voted to hire someone, and they said, why didn't you hire me? You hired a non-certified teacher, and I'm certified, and I applied. I don't have a clue. Somebody got on TV and said, what does a school board think they're doing? They can hire and fire anybody. Well, actually, that is what the school board does. We vote to hire everyone that comes in here, as far as I know. So, I want to sit there and look those people in the eye, and I want to know, I mean, up to this point, up until a couple of months ago, I saw a lot of things that were wrong, and I couldn't do anything about it. I felt like I didn't have a voice, and I feel like now that I do have a voice. And I promised the public when I ran for office that I would try to be their voice at the table. I want to see fair and honest treatment. I want to try to hire the most qualified person. Maybe not in every case, and I'm not going to say we're going to make the right decision every time, we're not. But people that work within the system, that work hard and they're dedicated, and they get passed over because they're not somebody special, is just wrong. And I just want to try to do what's right. I want to level the playing field for everybody. So when I go to vote for somebody, I want to know who I'm voting for. Now, qualifications, almost everybody up here is a business person in one way or another. We've all worked with the public. I'm not qualified to make the decision and wouldn't even begin to say that I was qualified on who's going to make a great teacher and who's not going to make a great teacher. But if I have another teacher and a building principal and maybe a superintendent asking the questions and I'm just observing, I'm still going to have to vote for that person in the end. And now, in my previous job when I was younger, I handled personnel and hired hundreds of people. Made lots of mistakes. I'm about 20 or 30 years older now, and I think I can do a little better job now than I did then. I'm still going to make mistakes, but I think the board needs to be on the hiring committee.
What's that gonna look like as far as the board and scheduling and getting a position filled in a timely manner?
So, you know, if 3 board members could, that would be an example of what would need to show up probably, but I would hope that all 7 could.
You have a couple board meetings.
That's fine. That's 48-hour advance. We usually know, before we vote on anybody, we usually, you know way ahead of time that, so there'd be no problem for doing that. Yeah. And there are other schools that do this.
Sure, I was just wondering, like, timeline wise, you know.
Other schools our size?
Like who?
I've heard a lot of people say there are.
No, I'm just saying.
Skyline. This is the that
Or have heard one our size.
We're not like a humongous school.
No, we're not.
I mean, we're pretty small.
I also got on the board to be the public's voice. Dan, I agree with you. I think we all did that. But I didn't want to be a micromanaging board member. And I don't know that with logistics and time, that it's gonna take to do this. I don't know that any of us have ever been teachers that I'm aware of. And I know, I don't think I'm qualified to say that this person's a better teacher than this person. And you mentioned experience, and I think there's a lot more. Experience is a big factor, but I think there's more that goes into it than experience. And I just think there is always, from what I've seen, there is always a building principal on that committee, and the head of a department, or maybe class if there is a head of a, I don't know if there is a head of a grade, but more experienced in that grade, along with others. Here's the thing: there's going to be somebody, and you said there's going to be somebody upset for not getting that job, no matter what we do. And I know there's been people upset for jobs getting passed over for jobs for various reasons, and it's still going to happen. I'm in favor of the current system. I think it's going fine.
I think that's what our administration's job is to do. Superintendent, assistant superintendent, principals, they're the leaders of the school and their respectable buildings. I think that is their job. I do not believe a board member's job is to hire teachers. If you want to bring up private, public companies, private places of employment, I do not believe that board members do the hiring of employees. I sit on several boards and I've never hired an employee, or even that's the CEO or the in this case, the superintendent's jobs and responsibilities. Dr. Dial is ultimately responsible for our school. He's basically the CEO of it, and that's his responsibility. It's not a board member's job to do the daily task that we've hired him to do.
Dr. Dial normally doesn't sit on the hiring.
So put him on it. So that's what I'm gonna say. I mean, you all can again choose to do what you choose to do. If you want me to, and when I got hired, some of you were here and you didn't like the hiring process. So I came up with this process because it was different before me, and you asked me to do that. But if we don't like it, that's fine. I can change that process. If you want me to fix it, I can absolutely fix it. And when the building principals have an opening and they're setting up a committee, I can meet with the building principals and I can help them decide who's going to be on that committee. And if you want Mr. Belton or I on that committee, we can do that. I think by you sitting in on the committee, you're going to make teachers very uncomfortable in that process.
Why do you think that?
That is just, and I may be wrong about that. I mean, I would have to ask them. It's just my opinion. Because you are in charge. I mean, they don't see you every day. They don't know you.
Maybe
for
they should.
the most part.
Maybe they should know us better.
That's just my opinion. I'm giving you my opinion. If you want me to fix it, I'll fix it.
What I'm proposing though, to talking to Mark and Bart there, the only difference is we're watching the interview. We're still taking a recommendation by the people that are giving the interview. So since I'm the one that has to approve that hiring, what's wrong with me seeing the interview? Is there a problem with that? That's the only difference.
I believe so.
That's
my opinion. I don't agree with you. I mean, I don't agree with you on a lot of things. This is definitely one of them. I think it's his job to take care of this, and you let him fix it. I mean,
So the person at your bank that's responsible for hiring doesn't sit on none of it?
What are you talking about?
Just like any time someone's hired, there's always someone that does the hiring.
You're right, but my board of directors don't sit in on the interviews.
Are they the ones that hire?
No. I mean,
do you hire anyone in your place?
Yes. And I'm responsible for that person.
And I'm responsible here.
Right, but I'm not a board member. There's two different, you're talking about board members and a supervisor. At the bank, I'm a supervisor. I'm not a board member. You're talking about board members. Board members are here to set basically, I mean, we're here to hire him. I mean, there is a description that is put out there, what a board member's responsibilities are. It's him, policies of the board, and the financial.
What's the board policy say?
Board policy says, a portion of the superintendent's position will be filled by the board only after receiving the position other than the superintendent's position will be filled by the board only after receiving the recommendation of the superintendent or designee. It is the policy of the board to employ qualified teachers with post-secondary degrees from fully accredited universities and appropriate teaching certificates. In making recommendations, the superintendent or designee shall give first consideration to applicants who, in addition to proper general education qualifications, have special training or other qualifications for the particular type of vacancy to be filled.
Doesn't say anything about who's on the interview committee or anything?
Nope. That is a procedure that I put in place, that I can change.
I think somewhere in our policy, there's and I'll have to find out what it is, but somewhere in our policy, there's a policy that gives guidelines on who sits on the hiring committee and whatnot. But
This is the professional staff recruiting and hiring.
I'll just have to check.
Yeah,
And I could be completely wrong.
Ms. Bassett, what did you want to say?
Okay, just the perspective of the teacher, if that's okay. I do know, and what Mr. Treadway said, you know, the idea of equals hiring each other. And in my experience, I've been on several hiring committees for English teachers and for other positions because we work as a team. And so for us to, and it's not about, you know, that dynamic just of friends, by no means, but it's, we will collaborate and work together, and who do we think will be an asset to our team? Because we're working on where they were 8th grade, 9th grade, 10th grade, and we're trying to help that way. So keeping teachers out of that loop, I think, would be kind of detrimental to our progress in trying to help kids and work together. I understand your perspective of wanting the board to have that final say and seeing a list of applicants. Maybe that's a procedure that could be put in place. You know, if applicants aren't being interviewed, there's probably a reason, and unfortunately it may be a bad reference, or it could be, you know, a lack of experience in a certain field, but maybe the board needs that information. But as a teacher, I love our current procedure, being part of that and being able to share and encourage, and I think that's a great thing about Ava, because we want to build our staff and encourage them to do their best.
Kind of process gives our teachers a voice.
You know, when you run up reference checks, the reference checks are always done by the supervisor, superintendent, principal or something, right?
And I wouldn't see that as a hiring committee. You know, they bring resumes and those things. I don't see any of that. And my experience has been, you know, we have a pretty standard rubric that we use, and we don't really discuss. We rank, you know, our expectations and our perceptions of that person. We turn that over to our supervisor, and then they make the decision without us really discussing it. It goes to Dr. Kyle that way. So we don't hire, we don't pick, we rank based on qualifications.
The principals get your results.
Yes, sir.
How do you vote?
How do I vote?
How does the hiring committee, how do you vote on?
What we do, and our most recent experience this last summer, you know, we had 4 applicants. We looked at those 4 applicants and did the interviews with our standard questions, and then I essentially ranked them. This is my number 1 pick. This is my number 2 pick, 3 and 4. And then I gave those ranking numbers to, with my colleagues. We didn't discuss our ranks. Nobody else saw those ranks. I made those rankings and gave them to my principal.
And when you say you looked at the applicants, is that you're looking at the resume and application?
We see resume, we see application, and we get to perform that interview,
Yeah,
and we sit
right.
in.
And just do the rubric like we used to.
Yeah, they have rubrics.
Yes, sir.
I don't know how this vote's gonna go, but if it continues to be like it is, I would make the recommendation that you all count your votes before you leave the room.
You think so? Okay.
And then go to your supervisor and say, this is who we chose.
Well, our supervisor in our experience has been part of that. I mean, she's sitting on the interview with us. And we give our rankings to her, but we don't discuss it with each other.
You could tally it in the room. You could
Yeah, but we
the
could
rankings in
tally
the room.
it.
That's what I'm
That's
saying,
easy.
is count them right there.
That's easy. That's easy to do.
Yeah, or have one superintendent's go in there and have them put.
But I'm not opposed to having, what'd you say, one teacher? I'm not opposed to having another teacher on the board, the way we're talking about doing it, or on the hiring committee. And still go ahead and do it.
Well, I think if you do put a teacher on there, it should be the lead teacher. It should be a teacher with a lot of years and not one that's not tenured, one that has 2 or 3 years in, one that's not seen it for a decade, you know, and knows how it's going. In the same way that what you're saying you've seen positive, in that same way, there's a big network of teachers throughout the whole area, all the way to Springfield, Rogersville, and beyond. And a lot of times there is communication between that district where that teacher's wanting to come to Ava and people here. And that teacher doesn't have it. If there's negative coming back from there, that teacher has no chance by the time they get down here. They can interview. If you've got 3 teachers on there that's already decided that, hey, I heard this about this person over here, I'm not going to vote for him. Okay, I'm not either. There you go. You got 3 peers. That other teacher has no chance. That happens.
I have never seen that happen in my experience.
I know for a fact that happens more than you'd like to hear. So
Because you've heard about it.
yeah, I've heard about it. And I do have family teaching. I got a daughter and a daughter-in-law. Not that I heard it from them, but I'm telling you, stuff like that happens. The teachers have a network of communication, and there's teachers here that know teachers all the way to Rolla and beyond.
Oh, yeah, I'm sure. I think they go to conferences together and train together a lot.
Again, if you would like for me to fix the hiring process and change some things about it, I'm happy to do that. I understand your concerns. I think it's my opinion that it's a mistake for board members to sit in on teacher hiring committees. I absolutely agree that if you're hiring Mr. Dalton, myself, even a high school principal, or a principal, that you could be involved in that process. That's just Jason's opinion.
Here's the thing. There's been a problem with it for a long time. It's going on and on and on, not just with you, but with every, for years. If you were gonna fix it, why didn't you fix it before now?
I did fix it to make, so when I came here, I was asked to fix it, and I put this process in place. And everybody seemed to be happy with it until the last few months. Now, as far as putting, like, the recommendation you got tonight had everybody that applied. I did that one, and that's easy to start, so you know who applied. I mean, I can add whatever you want to that form. I'm happy to do that, and I can work with the principals to be sure that they have an equitable hiring committee. But again, you can choose to do what you want to do.
So by the next board meeting, do you think that you could present
Absolutely.
a different plan to
Absolutely.
us? If we don't vote on anything this evening, can you present a different plan to us, a different way of doing it?
Yep.
Based on the things that you heard this evening?
Let's change the wording instead of a different way of doing it, an upgraded.
An upgraded way. First time I've ever heard you with, oh, let's change the wording. Can you do that, Dr. Bob?
Yep, September 17th.
You okay with that? Okay.
Good.
Then for now, we'll table it.
Very good. Nobody got anything else to say? I need a motion to adjourn.
Make a motion.
Randy makes a motion. Go a second. Any discussion? All in favor? 7-0. Motion passed.
We're signing our schedule. We can get together with our I know, it's crazy. Why did, like, I went up to middle school to take some books today, and in their mailboxes, they had some renewal.